Good evening. I'll call this meeting to order. Start out with the minutes, our last minutes.
I gave you a copy, right? I gave you a copy.
Yes.
Yeah. Need a motion to approve?
Oh. If you've looked at them, I'll ask the board members if they've looked at the past minutes.
No,
Do you have any additions or corrections?
no, I do not.
I don't either.
Hmm.
Kind of prove the minutes accepted as presented.
Second,
Having moved and seconded, the minutes from November 19th public meeting are approved. So here's your signed copy. This next, I want to clarify, this next portion is citizen comment. Citizen comment is not part of the hearing. The hearing is a very formal procedure and it's testimony. If anybody wants to present citizen comment at this time, you may, but it isn't part of the official record. Is there any citizen comment at this time? Easy. The old,
Yes, sir. So there's no time to speak.
there will be time during testimony, okay, of the hearing. Just a second. Can you state your name before you, if you're going to speak?
Brian Bratt, Wenatchee Valley Fire Department Fire Chief.
Okay.
I can wait during testimony time to speak.
No, anybody that's affected can speak at the hearing.
Okay.
So.
I can speak later too. Am I not asking this correctly?
No,
You can speak it both.
You can speak at both. Just
Oh, this isn't on the record.
this is not on the record.
Good evening, Brian Bratt, Wenatchee Valley Fire Department. I'll wait to speak on the record. Okay, thanks so much.
All right. Is that clear to everybody? I think it was. So, okay. I'm seeing no old business unless board members can come up with anything. All right, then we will move on to our new business, which is the hearing. So mark the time. This hearing is now called to order. Good evening. My name is Len Anderson, and I chair the Washington State Boundary Review Board for Douglas County. I will be conducting tonight's hearing. With me this evening are my fellow board members, Todd Skilstad and Ed Daling. Before we begin this session, there are some basic housekeeping items, so I'll ask you to be patient as I read through them. I would like to share with you this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. As such, we will maintain a modicum of decorum throughout the evening and go by Robert's Rules of Order. Please turn off all your cell phones, pagers, and electronic devices. If you need to take a call, please leave the hearing room. This is a courtesy request on behalf of those who are attending this meeting so the board members can concentrate on the discussion before them. I ask everyone to remain silent while board members are listening to tonight's testimony. You may hear comments or questions that do not align with your personal beliefs or side of the argument. Please refrain from indicating your dissatisfaction or support for what is being voiced. That'll be difficult. It is important that the board hear what is being said. The purpose of tonight's session is to hear from all interested parties while giving board members an opportunity to ask questions and ask for clarification of any material being presented tonight and what was given to the board on paper. Anyone wishing to testify must come to the podium, state your name, your full name prior to testimony. Comments from the audience So if you're not at the podium, you're the audience, will not be permitted. I also ask that nobody, we'll get a show of hands here shortly, but you're asked to speak and speak once so that everybody has a chance to speak. If we get completely through and somebody wants to speak again, then there may be an opportunity. If there is any disruption at tonight's proceeding, the offending party will be asked to leave the hearing room and the building. The public hearing this evening is on Boundary Review Board 2025-02 Rimrock-Fire-District Incorporation by the Rimrock Meadows Homeowners Association. This hearing has been advertised as required by law, excuse me, through the publishing of legal notice in the Wenatchee World newspaper on October 30th, November 20th, and November 27th, and the Empire Press on October 30th and November 20th, 2025. Notices of the hearing were posted in the subject area for at least 5 days prior to this hearing. For the purpose of this record today, it is December 10th, 2025, that the board's jurisdiction was invoked by the Palisades School District and a petition submitted by registered voters residing within the area being considered. The board will now hear the issues and receive testimony this evening. Depending upon the time at the close of the hearing, the board may then deliberate and make an oral decision tonight or may convene December 24th, 2025 at the Douglas County Public Services Building to deliberate and come to a decision. The board will adopt its written decision on January 7th, 2026 in the public meeting room of this building, this one here. Upon adopting its written decision, there will be a 30-day appeal period, which will end on February 6th, 2026. Any appeal will be made to Superior Court. By state statute, the board may only consider the factors and objectives from the RCWs, the regulations of revised code of Washington, Where possible, I ask that you confine your testimony this evening to those relevant factors and objectives under that RCW 36.93.170 and 180. A list of the factors and objectives is available on the table with the agendas. The hearing will proceed as noted on the agenda. Before we begin, let us see a show of hands of those of you who wish to testify tonight. Oh, got 1, 2, 5.
Only 5?
Okay. Oh, 6. Okay, never too late. We ask each speaker to not repeat what was stated by a previous speaker. Please indicate if you concur and then offer something new for the board to consider. If you have written testimony, you may submit this to our chief clerk, and when you testify, and it will be included in the record. Are there any disclosures from my fellow board members?
Nope.
No.
All right. Oh, seeing none, I will ask then in turn for who wishes to go first.
Proponent for the project goes first.
Okay. So who would be the proponent?
Okay. I'm Josh McKenzie. I'm the general manager of Rimrock Meadows. This fire district was created to provide fire service for Palisades and Rimrock Meadows. Without this fire district, and I want to stress it's not a Rimrock fire district, it will be a Douglas County fire district to serve both Palisades and Rimrock. Without it, we'll both have no fire service, which is unfortunate. So again, I want to stress it'll be Douglas County Fire District. They'll be trained by Douglas County firefighters. It will not just be a Rimrock people. It'll be Rimrock and Palisades volunteers trained by professional firefighters. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In order of, you want to,
Proponents, I guess I can go in the middle. If I go later, it might be better. Not that I'm that smart, but I might have context.
okay, who would like to go
I can
first?
Go ahead and go.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is David Linville. I'm here actually representing the Palisades School District. I'd like to basically say the reasons why we're not in favor of this is, number one, we also believe that, fire districts are important. We'd like to have coverage. However, we would like to have coverage by, in essence, a full-time professional firefighter. Board, I'm one of the directors, I should have said that. The board has discussed this issue because obviously we care about our district and we care about our school, we care about our community. And the very short version is that, we'd have no problem being annexed into Wenatchee Valley Fire and paying Wenatchee Valley Fire. Have any? We haven't ever had any. We've always been man's land. And so, we understand the importance of the district. However, we want to make sure that if we're going to pay for a service, we're going to get this. There are some of the issues that were brought up in a couple of our meetings had to do with, for example, wintertime service, because the roads between Rimrock or wherever it's not accessible. So you can't count on, the fire truck down whenever. So there are other issues that were brought up, including the difference in tax rates between what it costs to be annexed in fire versus what it would cost to be annexed in. But Rimrock was proposing, and again, what that argument came down to is it would be a better deal for taxpayers of the community to pay. That was, like I said, what we had discussions on, and the board itself, all the members. About our community, we care about our school, like to keep it intact, and we'd like to.
So currently you have no fire coverage, correct?
Correct, yes. That's not just the school itself, that's roughly from mile marker 4, let's say, to prior to that, from mile marker 4 to State Route 28, and yeah. But historically it was Doug 2, and now is Wenatchee Valley.
Have you ever had a volunteer, an actual organized volunteer?
There was many, many years ago, yeah, and staff department. I think the biggest thing with that is that volunteer works well and probably would have worked okay if the area was as rural as it was 40 years. How long ago? I think there was one at CRO, if I remember right. But the demographics of the coulee have changed dramatically, not even in the last 40 years, I would say even the last 5 years. And I think that that's part of what the discussion is about, is that, if you go back 5, 10, 15 years ago, it probably would have been a very different conversation for Wenatchee Valley Fire, or at the time Doug 2. No, they wouldn't have, let's say 2015, 10 years ago. I don't think it would have worked out, because I don't think the numbers were there to get enough revenue collected so that Wenatchee Valley Fire could come in proper service. And I think that demographic, or the taxing demographic, has changed enough. Chief, I'm sure you could either back me up or tell me I'm full of it. But I think that there's enough people that live there, and the taxable value has increased enough that there could be a different expectation there as far as being able to afford that. I'm Doug 2 to incorporate it, because there just wasn't the tax base. I think, like going back to the school board itself, we've seen that on our side as well, the taxing basis of the school district has increased considerably, like 20% in the last half. So it's definitely noticeable that there are more people, more houses, more revenue, however you want to look at it. So.
Any questions more from the board? I'll remind the board to use the mics.
Yeah, there was five.
It was five.
Please, somebody step up there.
Good, 93 Wagon Road in Palisades. Fairly close to the Three Devils Road. Quite often go to Afraida. Not been able to get through on more than one occasion on that road. It's just very, very steep. Or it slows it down. So I also service from somebody that we're connected to by a mostly paved.
Questions from the board? Thank you.
Sarah Hale. I live not interested in.
Well, I know you can speak for yourself.
I'm just.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question. Laura, correct?
I'm Sarah.
Oh, Sarah, apologize, Sarah. So, would you rather have in my mind, most of this is gonna probably depend on what Brian has to say, and I think you guys probably have a better idea than I do on that, but would you rather have some fire protection than none? Or would you rather, depending on what Wenatchee Valley Fire says, which we're gonna probably hear in Brian's testimony, but just
In my opinion, I would like to pay. All know how to use a shovel around here. That before,
Okay.
but we would like to.
correct. And that's the gist of my question. It's, if you've been, if you guys have had brush fires and I live in outlying areas, and if you have a fire, it happens quick, and definitely rather have professional fire protection than nothing. But when it happens quick. So at the end of the day, to me, it's a property insurance, a house or a homeowner's insurance or a property insurance question. So would you rather have the banner of some fire protection where it allows you to buy insurance or none? And I'm not saying that's the issue in front of us. It's not, but that's just a question of practicality, I think. No, and I don't think that's in our purview. We can't adjust the boundary. So I think for us, it's a yes or a no, and then it has more of the process to go through anyway, but yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Molly Linville, 596 Palisades Road. I'm actually outside of the loop of the potential proposed boundary, but there's a couple of pieces here on good governance that I would like to talk about briefly. Part of the problem, I think, for us is there was no community outreach on this. We were totally blindsided by this. Rimrock never came to Palisades, said, hey, let's have a community meeting. And we just had to show up. And at this point, it puts us in the defensive position that you have seen previously and tonight. And so that is a pretty hard pill to swallow, that we weren't included in any of those conversations. And now we have to all show up to push back now because we weren't given the opportunity before. Second piece of this is we have ranchers up there who are here tonight, and their expensive property was put into the loop, but their range ground, which they depend on for their livelihood, is not in the proposed boundary. And so, in other words, that was a clear money grab. And that isn't okay, because they are having their valuable, which is irrigated property, being used for the tax purposes, but then they are not going to be inside the district if their range ground is on fire. And that is unacceptable to me. Another piece about this that is problematic is I personally have been begging Doug 2, which was previous to Wenatchee Valley, to annex us in for years. I've been begging for years. I go back periodically and rebag. And it was always because we didn't have enough tax revenue to support service. And that made total sense to us. Like, we get that. We know. My husband and I have purchased 2 brush trucks so that we can do something in the meantime while we are treading water, waiting for enough people to move out into Palisades so that we can be annexed in to what is now Wenatchee Valley. So part of the problem here is we've been waiting, we've been doing due diligence, we've been fighting our own fires. There's a whole other piece to that that I won't get into. And now they want to come throw a loop around part of the properties that would get us to that tax revenue level that would allow us to be annexed into Wenatchee Valley. And so, and that is frustrating beyond measure, because we have been doing our due diligence while being in unprotected lands, which is a very complicated thing to be, because if you call professional fire services and you're in unprotected lands, they could possibly charge you if they come out and put a fire out for you if you're not in their district. So just wanted to point out some pieces about that weren't, otherwise I agree with Sarah and David and Laura. But I wanted to point out those not good governance pieces that go along with this in my mind.
Okay, could a couple clarifications?
Sure.
So what was your last name?
Linville.
Linville?
Yeah.
And you are in the area, or you're not in the affected area?
I'm not in the affected area, but it affects me because this boundary, our ranch, is those first 4 miles that are in Wenatchee Valley Fire District. And then a big chunk of the ranch is in unprotected lands. And this potential loop starts what we would say up coulee from us. So a hunk of our ranch is still going to be unprotected lands if this boundary adjustment happens.
So
It doesn't solve any problems for us.
your home is currently in Wenatchee Valley Fire
No.
District?
Part of our ranch. So it's 6,000 acres, so it's long. So a couple thousand acres are in Wenatchee Valley, and then 4,000 of them are in unprotected lands, and will continue to be in unprotected lands, even with this.
Oh, I understand. Thank you.
My name's Thomas Shapley. I live at 29 Wagon Road, Palisades. I don't want to be redundant, so I will only add to the talk about the growth of Palisades. I have, my wife and I have just remodeled a formerly vacant home on our property. One of my daughters has just built a new house and shop in the coulee. My other daughter has purchased property and is going to build a shop and a house. We're a perfect example, I think, of what's going on there. And I would like to respond to your question, pose what I see as a false dilemma. We would not have sufficient fire service or fire service worth anything to me, waiting on a fire truck to come up and down Three Devils Grade. Thank you.
wasn't exactly a question I was asking, but yeah, I get that concern, but yeah, brush fires happen fast wherever you are, and Brian could speak to this better than me, but to me, if you're far away, you're far away, so it's gonna take so much time. Whether it's better fire service or worse fire service, if you live in rural Douglas County or rural Eastern Washington, anywhere, if fires happen quick and your house could burn down, it doesn't matter where you are. It's a reality of living in the desert that we live in. So, and this is maybe the way I'm looking at it, might be wrong. And I think maybe people are convincing me that I'm looking at it wrong, but my mind is, if you're in some sort of fire district, you have the opportunity to buy, you have a better opportunity to buy homeowners insurance or insurance to cover for fire. So then you want to be in a, so you're not in the district, you people have bought, you guys own this property, and I own some too that's out of a fire district, and I've had fires and it's cost me losses. So if I'm in a rural fire district, I can purchase insurance against my loss. If I'm not in a fire district, I can't. So if that's the question I'm getting at, I guess, if you're in a, not necessarily the fire district you want to be in, but if you're in a fire district, you can purchase insurance, and if you're not, you can't.
I can only speculate that if I pitch this to my insurance agent, he'd laugh in my face. I don't think I could buy 10 cents worth of property insurance based on this proposal.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Thank you. Yes, you.
Chrissy McKenzie and out at Rimrock Meadows, and I just want to circle back that this is a petition to create a fire district boundary. So a Douglas County fire district. We do not have a fire district. We're not able to get mutual aid in the area. So creating a fire district would allow us to be able to potentially request mutual aid, call in other districts to import. There's been no indication of where the fire district location, whether it in Rimrock Meadows, if it would be in Palisades, if it would have a truck in location. None of that's been decided. So I don't feel like saying, oh, we're not going to be able to drive up the Billings Ranch Road in the wintertime should be an impact. We don't know where the building's going to be. I also want to point out that, like you said, insurance. I'd rather be in a district and continue to move through that process and get the boundaries maybe moved, including the 7 miles that we talked about at the last meeting. That was
Go ahead and adjust. The board.
Not included. That would be easier to say, you know what, hey, we forgot the 7 miles. Let's include that because we already have a district, than to go through this entire process again. Have it 3 years, 4 years.
Can I get your address? Address?
1206 Sagebrush.
Thank you, Kristen.
Last one standing.
I think there's a show.
Board, I think there's a win-win
Give
here.
your name. Sorry, again, this is the official.
Brian Brett, Financial Valley Fire Department, and phone number's not. There's a win-win here. If lacking why there would be a sense of urgency Because we didn't know anything about it either. I have contacted by residents in the Palisades that were upset about this. And if the sense of urgency is coming from trying to get insurance affordability, you're a long ways away from that. What I would suggest is you postpone making this decision. We collaborate and come up with what is the right thing to do. Honestly, forming this fire district could be the right thing to do. Yes, if I were to put myself in your shoes, in what I know, and maybe you know way more than I do, I think you're lacking a ton of information to make it. And just to give you some of the information you would want to consider is, one, the communication, as Ms. Linville, Palisades residents weren't reached out. Elaborate on this. The sentiment is taxation without representation. Getting the buy-in to proceed in this direction, and then talking about the revenue, and then what's reasonable and what you're going to get out of it, so that viable is one way to do it. I can give you no assurance that the Wenatchee Valley Fire Department would even annex Palisades in. I've looked at that, and I'll speak to that on the revenue side and the logistics side. Glancing at the proposed revenue stream that's at Rimrock, potentially someone from Rimrock projected a revenue stream. I would really want to analyze that. On a quick glance, I noticed what is likely tax exempt parcels showing. Then Department of Revenue codes on the land, like for example, an 83 case gives the farmers by design a significantly reduced tax rate. So if the revenue assumptions were based on the assessed value of the parcel in totality, the actual mechanics of that may not be right, and you may be way off. And then when you're looking at insurability, well, if this fire district is to be formed, you would want to have you'd want fairness in service delivery. From the insurability standpoint, you can only go 7 miles from a fire station. The first 5 miles gets you full credit. The next 2 miles has a little subcategory called /W that if you have a water tender, but the other question where you need this community outreach is if you can't guarantee that 2 fire stations, let's say there's 2, there's one in the Palisades and one in Rimrock, minimum what you need. If Rimrock and or Palisades cannot give you 6 volunteer firefighters minimum that can meet the documented training required to be in good standing with the Washington Survey and Rating Bureau, nothing. Then to get the credit, you need a type 1 fire engine. They currently go get them used. You need a type 1 fire engine. And you need a water tender. But those 2 apparatus at a minimum, and a fire station. You could easily be looking at look at a $4 million investment in each station. Have the revenue stream to, that would be, these are questions I have.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I'm used to public speaking to the group. I feel rude not talking to them.
Think of us as the public.
The public. The board, there's a win-win. It's just, there's no urgency in my opinion. A good quantitative study where everybody's involved, that's discussed and then brought to you, then you don't.
Can you answer? I have a question, Brian.
Please ask.
Is Wenatchee Valley Fire interested in annexing the upper Palisades?
I don't know. That would be a Board of Commissioners question. Tell you, we peripherally looked at it in this one regard. If you only take the parcels that touch the Palisades Road from milepost 4 to Billingsley's, that only brings in about 20,000 a year in revenue. That is a long ways away from a $4 million investment in Palisades to get fire protection. Then so the Wenatchee Valley Fire Department is going to leave $15 billion of assessed value and 7,000 calls a year to run up the Palisades for $20,000 a year.
So then what's the win-win scenario you're talking about that's not a rural fire district?
So the win-win could be that rural fire district, right? Have all the data on how this rural fire district would equitably function, and then we are a mutual aid partner to the fire district, then you're looking at a viable business model. But we have that information yet, so
No, we don't.
either. So this could be a viable business model if we collaborate and vet it.
In the past, I think the request has been for you to take over the area.
The answer has historically been no. It's the revenue stream. Granted, going back to my previous statement, we were operating under the assumption the farmers aren't wanting to pay exorbitant property taxes on that land. Assumption on our part. Now they may be. The revenue wasn't there, and leaving the population base at risk and assessed value at risk to service the area, the risk management model wasn't there. Not saying we wouldn't do it, but before we would consider it, Rimrock needs fire protection. Douglas County 1, I've met with Douglas County 1, Grant 13, Grant 3, and us. All talked about how to address this area and how could we provide fire protection there. Waterville, Douglas County 1's out. They don't want to do it. Grant 13 pulled the contract. They don't want to do it. So they are in Douglas County and they do deserve to have fire protection. Palisades is in Douglas County and they deserve to have fire protection. All I'm saying is we're semi-smart people, and if we collaborate, we could figure this out. I'd love to answer more questions. I have a lot to say, but I'll be respectful of time.
I guess I just, how does the Wenatchee Fire District approach fighting wildland fire when there's a home and a lot of brush land? Because I've seen how the feds handle it, pretty much just protect the house, and they just let the rest of the land burn. Sure. Wenatchee Fire District do different?
Of course, so I'll give you an analogy, and to be respectful to our cooperators, which are the forest natural resources. Their engagement model is a little different, and the complexity and logistics of where they have to fight fires is different. Have it easier than them. Or I give an analogy that generally people can resonate with. Do you watch mixed martial arts? The guys fighting in the octagon? Watch that.
Guilty a time or two.
Yes, yes. Mixed martial arts. No whole jujitsu, judo, boxing, wrestling, all the above. Okay.
Try and keep it on topic. I know it's an analogy, but that's
Because people always ask, well, how do you fight fires? Because it's an esoteric statement that people can't relate to, but people can relate to MMA. When we get dispatched to a fire, the first thing we do is go, oh, there's where it is. This is most likely going to be a rip and fire. Launch air resources, make all the orders you can. Everybody's going as fast as they can. We get the aircraft in the air because in MMA, that's like a flying Superman punch to the throat. I mean, we're not waiting to manage the fire. We're going to kill it. Flying Superman punch to the throat, air resources, deploy all the apparatus, ground troops, bulldozers, everything, get the cooperators and kill it. Because our goal is to be done with the fire as quickly as possible. professional answer is we protect lives, including our own infrastructure and personal property in that order. How do we do it? Aggressively and with ferocity. In closing, board, I wouldn't form this yet. This is a resemblance of the federal government. Let's pass a bill and find out what's in it.
Well, okay. We have certain restrictions on what we can and can't do. Ours is pretty much a yes or no.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm Dave Mayer, I just got it. 161 Road 12, Southeast, East Parade of Washington. It's in Douglas County. I am in the no district. I guess I want to emphasize that we need at some point in time, we need to move forward with this. What I'm afraid of is I have a ranch. I am probably as close as just as the rest of you guys of not having any insurance, zip, zero, none. And if we keep waiting and waiting, because I have been trying to get some sort of fire district, my dad even discussed it, that they've been trying for years and years to get a district. Used to be everybody just showed up. I personally would rather have a volunteer, 6 people show up to start putting the fire out and then get mutual aid than waiting an hour to an hour and a half before someone shows up to put water on my house. And that's, I guess I'm paying insurance because, I'm trying to say, because I'm not in a fire district, I am paying X amount of dollars. And I think even though my tax base, I would have to pay more, I would actually gain more by having my insurance cheaper than I would be putting into starting a fire district. I just would like to see the wheels get going. If it is a no, what would need to be done? Either take the Palisades and put them in one group and put Rimrock in the upper half of the Palisades in another. But I guess somewhere we need to get some kind of idea what's going to happen. That's just a thought. So,
Dave, I have a question for you. So, yeah, so are you, I think I understand your point of view, but are you a proponent of the rural fire district or?
yes, I
No?
would like to
Okay.
see one.
Thank you.
Why not? So Gerald Dotson, 1561 Snaffle Court in Rimrock. I apologize. I am on the board now. However, when the proposal originated, and I'll talk to you guys, ignore them.
Now, remember you're speaking to us.
Yes, I'm ignoring them. See this? Got blinders on. And so I was living in Rimrock when the Fire District 13 dropped us. My insurance rates went up. I was able to work with my insurance carrier because Rimrock does have some firefighting equipment. They have firehouse, they have tinder, they have brush trucks. And so with that, I was able to not pay exorbitant rates for my fire insurance right now. However, it did considerably go up. Having some sort of a fire district would benefit, at least with my insurance carrier, to reduce those rates once again to something that's reasonable. Am I a proponent? Yes, very much so, of having something rather than nothing. Does a lot of work need to go into that development? Possibility of 2 firehouses as opposed to 1? Yes, there's a lot of work that needs to go in, but regardless, something has to happen. Statement previously was
What's the urgency? The urgency has been that many of us have been paying much more for insurance now, trying to get this thing moving for the last couple of years. And finally, here we are in front of you speaking towards trying to acquire that fire district.
When was it that, that grant 13 dropped
I think it was 2 years ago,
coverage?
2 or 3, yeah. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. President.
thank you.
Opponent like to address any started?
Yeah. Guess I will apologize for us not reaching out to Palisades, more. Again, I don't know what I'm doing with this whole starting a fire district thing, so I'll take that as my fault. Rimrock's been trying to get fire coverage for a long time. We spent a lot of money trying to do this. I agree with fire chiefs. There's definitely things that gotta be worked out. But I think we can make it work out the best for both worlds if we work together and get things going. I know we need fire coverage. They need fire coverage.
I had a question based on previous testimony. It sounds like that you would need at least building, separated buildings to actually give coverage.
Correct. In Rimrock, we currently have a firehouse that we have. We would be willing to let Douglas County use that if it becomes a Douglas County Fire District. So that would kind of help with some of the cost of putting a fire building in Palisades. We do have a tender, a couple of fire trucks that we would be willing to help donate or use or whatever it takes to help us get this going. Whether they meet the standards or not, I don't know. They're old fire trucks. Rimrock's willing to help in whatever way we can to make it work for both Rimrock and Palisades. I understand that I think this is a money grab. From my opinion, it was just trying to get people fire coverage. We need tax base to do that. We had involved, the attorneys help us do this. Engineers for all the lines, and then surveyors. We did use a lot of people. Nothing was intended to put Palisades in harm or make them upset. It was more to help them, from my point of view and all the work we've put into this. So I apologize for the lack of communication. And I hope we can make something work out best for both of us.
There means or a plan to include the community in?
Well, after the last meeting, I reached out to the 2 contacts I had in Palisades, and nobody wanted to meet up. So I tried to have a meeting with them before this meeting. I had one person I was texting and one I was emailing. I'm trying to get something. I tried to go on the Facebook page, but they didn't allow me on the Facebook page to help set up a meeting before this to kind of get a better understanding together. After the last meeting, I was trying to reach out the best I could, other than knocking on everybody's door. Again, I'm still open to communicate and work with whoever to get this thing going, to get a fire district there to work for both communities. Doesn't sound like Rock Island would cover them unless we had another fire district to use as mutual aid. So there's a lot to learn on both sides, and for the county, obviously, he knows way more about firefighting than any of us do here. I'm just trying to get something going for our community and for their community. That's our goal.
Is the intent to work with, say, Wenatchee Valley Fire?
We'll work with whoever wants to work with us to get fire coverage for everybody. That's our goal, is fire coverage.
Where would personnel get training?
It'd be through a Douglas County. If it becomes a Douglas County fire district, Douglas County would be in charge of training, and not Rimrock. They'll have to pass. They'd have fire chief, and they'd be in charge of training, I believe. I mean, he'd know way more about that than I do. So we wouldn't be training. It'd be a Douglas County fire district training the firefighters.
Board members? Okay.
No.
Thank you for addressing.
Thank you.
First. And you in the back, did you get signed in?
My name's Charity Roth. I live at 1137 Palisades Road. I'm about, from Highway 28, I am 11 and a half miles up the Palisades Road. So I am more than 7 miles from Rock Island, or I mean, not Rock Island, I mean Rimrock. So to be within that coverage that Mr. Brett is talking about, from supposedly having this firehouse in Rimrock, my house would be burnt down. I wouldn't, and they're also annexing a heck of a lot of my rangeland that I'm gonna pay $1.50 tax revenue on just so they can let my house burn down. I'm not very happy about this. I'm against this. I'm sorry. Because we're too far away from this, where this place is gonna be.
So just to clarify, so you're under the coverage area, but you would be outside.
That's 7 miles
Mr.
that,
Brett talked, the 7
Mhm.
miles.
yeah, I'm more than 7 miles away because it's, the whole coulee is, I think, to Brett Billingsley's is 18. And like I said, I am at 1137. So right there, just from my house to Brett's is another 7 miles. And then you got to go clear up the Devils. And then I don't know what it is from the Devils
But just to clarify that, so you don't think the fire district would even try to?
Oh, they would
the fire
probably
out?
try, but they would.
You're
be
just
too late.
saying, for insurance purposes, you're outside that 7.
I'm
7 miles.
outside that 7 miles. I'm probably a good 14 out of that. And like I said, they've got majority of my range ground that you can't even get a brush truck up on. There's no way. The only way to get to that range ground that they've got annexed into this is coming from Rock Island. So how? And like I said, I'm not willing to pay the $1.50 tax base to let my place burn down.
Do you have information on the tax base that the board doesn't have? Or is that a speculation that you're guessing?
That's a
it might-
speculation. That's the max, I guess, is what I've heard.
So
this
there's
is
no,
their-
so there's no evidence that that's what the rate would be.
That's no, yes, that's just a hearsay, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
But
Thank you. Ms. Roth.
I redirect a question to Chief Brett.
Just call him up.
Yeah. Is it feasible to actually look at numbers and see what is cost effective? I mean, is that something that with the help of your agency that could actually look at some kind of a financial feasibility reality for that area?
Yes,
That's,
yes, we can precisely figure that out and just to read. They do need fire protection, and to clarify a little bit further on statement, if you are simply annexed into a fire district, that can help you marginally. For example, if you were not in the fire district and you were at a 10, which is the worst, uninsurable, scale goes from 1 to 10, 1's the best, 10's the worst. simply being in a fire district could give you a 9. Credit for that. And I'm simply encouraged to have everybody here
Remember
to
you're talking.
used to public speaking. It's rude to turn your back to the public. The understand the urgency to try and get insurability. You're a ways out from getting it. I don't know. Or for having to make this decision. Now open the communication channel here with a little bit of diligence. You may have a very viable business model. As I've stated, there's no assurance that Wenatchee Valley Fire would annex the Palisades in. And speculation on the rate, I had seen analysis floated out there where my memory was it was at $1.50. That is the stat. Our rates in our jurisdiction differ dollar or unemployment. And that's the analysis you would need, right? Take up to $1.50. How much taxable value do you have in here? And you provide equitable coverage, and at what rate would you have to get that? Thought of the communities having to know, probably want to make the most minimal investment you can to give the stations a gap. Because it's very difficult to recruit and retain. Supposing you may be on a viable model, it just hasn't been that.
Would their fire district be able to work with Wenatchee Valley Fire and
Yes.
coming up with their model and coming up with?
We all help each other all the time, and as the gentleman from Rimrock stated, the training component. We have a statewide consortium of training under the Washington State Patrol. They would be their own entity. They would have their own fire chief, their own command structure, responsible for getting and documenting their own training. And you can do that internally amongst yourselves, but there are external resources as well. Get that training. Fire district gives you that opportunity. They don't have it now. Fire district also allows you to go for state mobilization immediately. Nice state mobilization for wildland response. But again, my goal here was to just be factual and neutral. Facts on everybody wants the best business model. I just don't like to make decisions without all the information.
If the board said no tonight, go work with them, or do they need to form something for you to work?
I'm not an attorney, Chairman.
Either am I.
We're more than willing to piston crunching the numbers.
I realize you're not the senior guy there either, but you
I have 6 bosses.
you carry some weight. Yeah, only 6.
Yes. 6 bosses. We're more than happy to collaborate. Rimrock obviously has an attorney, or the attorney surveyor, etc. Validate. Point being is this has come across hostile to the Palisades residents because of lack of communication. Our due diligence. This all, it might be the best thing we can do.
Probably the crux you just pointed out.
You're looking at forming a fire district right now with unknown revenue, unknown. The Heacon is a fire district. They don't have any volunteers. A formed fire district, so they can ask for state mobilization.
Well, that was a question I was gonna ask you, and you brought it up. So if you have a rural fire district and you have some revenue, that's arguable, whatever. But if you are out of a fire district, you can ask for state mobilization. But if you're in a fire district, even if it's a shell fire district, that allows you to ask for state mobilization, where if Ms. Roth calls you, asks for state mobilization or help, you can't involve state resources because you're not in a fire district. If you're in a fire district, whether it's a shell or not, if you're in some sort of fire district, it might not be the one you're happy with, but you could call for state resources and they would respond because you're in a fire district.
That's fact.
That's a good point.
We have never been denied getting state mobilization. We have requested it often. We do, so who's gonna do it, right? Somebody would have to do it.
Oh, that's the corollary to it, I guess, the other side. So if you get a call from, let's say it's not the Palisades, you get a call from some other area of unincorporated Douglas County, and I don't even know who it would go to first, but if you get another unincorporated area of Douglas County and you get a fire call from people that are outside of it, it's not your purview, but if you're the guy that gets a call and you call the state for state mob, are they going to show up outside of a fire district too, whether it's rural or not? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That gives me both sides of that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
And
no comments from.
Sorry.
and the verbiage is, what triggers that is real. A fire in the Palisades, developing wildland fire, is going to be.
Correct. It's going to be the state's problem eventually,
Yeah.
or Wenatchee Valley fires
Yeah,
or anyone.
So why not get on it?
Depends which way the wind's blowing.
Right. Yes.
But that's a good point. So let's take Palisades or Rimrock out of it, but let's say you're on Pearl Hill, and maybe they have a rural fire district, I don't know, but let's say you're there, you have a fire, you have some structures or you have some property, whatever, you call for state aid and the state agrees we need to show up. Then when it comes time to pay the piper and pay the bill, if I realize I realize I know nothing about this. I'm just trying to figure out where the rubber meets the roads. So yeah, when the bill comes due, is there more protection being in a fire district? The state says, well, this was arson, someone owes some money, or the insurance companies are fighting it out on who owes what. Is there more protection for the people? Let's say, is there more protection for the citizens if they're under a fire district that, well, we might not necessarily get sent a bill by the state for all these resources the state dispatched? Does that make sense?
It does. It's twofold. So if you are in a fire district and state mobilization is approved, once that is approved, the state assumes financial responsibility.
Okay.
If the state takes a mobilization outside a fire district, they have taken that responsibility. I've never seen a bill.
Okay.
They would deny it, right?
Or
They would just deny the mobilization and not be financial.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
Pleasure, thanks.
I just have a factual correction.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and state your name again.
Yes, I will. David Linville, just representing myself. I want to make one thing really clear, as far as you guys making your decision. I think it's important to realize that as proposed, the boundary does not cover Palisades. So please don't look at this as providing a district to Palisades, because just going on road miles, you have like a 6-mile gap that there wouldn't be any coverage still. So look at the boundary. If you're saying yes or no, you can't in good conscience say that covers Palisades, because it's left out. So, if the goal is to try to get everybody in a district, this doesn't meet the goal. So I would say this is
that's not the goal. Our goal is yes or no.
Yeah,
I understand that, and that's why
it's a yes. or
On
no
the
over
boundaries that
area
they're drawn.
Designated.
And then it
I'm
goes
just
on
saying
from there.
That leads kind of towards a no, because if you're claiming one thing but not doing it, that makes it kind of hard to defend. All I was pointing out.
So is this Palisades School
No, that was,
that you're representing?
for
or the-
that comment, I was representing myself, as I
Okay.
said.
Yes.
I just wanted to kind of wrap all this.
Name.
You don't need to say that.
Oh, just check. I gotta keep saying it's a new one.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to speak to the board and to say that, a fire district in Palisades is not necessarily a bad idea. Bad idea. But this is the cart before the horse, I think is the saying. Information provided to people here has no information, factual information about revenue, how we're gonna pay for a building. Have 6 viable individuals that are gonna be volunteers. How are we going to designate a fire chief? Who's gonna establish all that? Who's gonna secretary? I don't want to be it. I'm enough secretaries in Palisades. So there's a lot of things that should be brought up and should be discussed and provided. And when I was approached by Josh via text and email, I had requested information. The information provided was no more than what we here, which is not enough information out to everybody in Palisades. If I was not able to find anybody in our involved, and they haven't done their due diligence, viable for everybody. So, board having fire protection is good. This specific yes, no answer is a very easy no. There's not enough information to show that this is actually something that can be done.
Yeah, yes. So your property is covered by this incorporation?
I am included in the boundary, I believe, yes.
School is not, you know,
Is,
school is covered.
yes. And just so you know, I have insurance on my house. Fire district, fire insurance on my other house, never been in a fire district, you know. Insurance, not in a fire district.
Thank you, sir.
Didn't raise my hand earlier. Hi, my name is Emily Ness. I live at 23 Wagon Road in Palisades. Recently moved out there and purchased property we're building on, which is within the boundary as well. I am against this because we have had no notification at the meeting in, gosh, I don't remember the date when we had the meeting and we first learned more about this. I spoke directly with Josh and kind of asked him, you know, why hadn't they talked to us? And if this was even viable for Rimrock to do on their own. And he directly said they could not do it without the income from Palisades. So there was never a consideration of asking Palisades if this was a good idea, because they didn't seem to want to know if it was a good idea for us, because it was important for their community to have fire coverage at the risk of alienating a portion of our community. To me, that doesn't seem like a great way to build a volunteer fire district. I asked him for more information at the time. He didn't seem to know anything about Douglas County being involved in the formation of this volunteer fire district at that meeting. I feel very strongly that a lot of residents, including myself, was able to get fire insurance, and I just bought my property and I was still able to get fire insurance now. So for us in the Palisades, fire insurance is a possibility. I understand that for Rimrock, it isn't. And I'd also have questions why the district that covered them up to 2 years ago is no longer covering them, and what was the basis behind that decision, and how that would affect our future fire district if that was. Questions?
Thomas Shapley again, and thank you for letting me have another shot at this, but spent 30 years as a newspaper journalist covering government. I spent another 10 years as a communications director for state agencies. Two important words come to mind I've heard tonight: due diligence and good government. And I think this is a chance for you to correct the situation, because so far it hasn't gone that way. It is not good governance to not talk to the people who want to contribute to your project. It's not me saying this. The proponents have admitted that tonight. They didn't reach out to us. And then when we did find out about this and we came to a previous meeting here, then we had to go out and we had to gather signatures for a petition just to have this hearing. That cost us $200. I don't understand why that is. But the arguments of due diligence and good governance seems to me you have an excellent chance here to say no, and then let the process go the way it should have gone, which was cooperation, communication, due diligence, and good governance.
Yes, Mr. Brett.
I didn't know.
We'll point out this is your,
I'm out, done. Done, I promise.
right.
I didn't realize, I didn't realize the boundary had a gap in it like that, so. If you do form this fire district, please consider. Sometimes that's not quite possible, but it is at milepost 4 on the Palisades to our jurisdiction. Could abut Douglas County 1. And I believe Grant 13 is closest one to butt it from the east. You cause us big problems if you leave gaps. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any other comments?
Don Otten, 6126 West Coyote Rock.
Don Hutton?
Yeah. I'm new to all this and just heard about it. What I can tell is the fire doesn't care. It's gonna take out your home. It doesn't care what district you're in. So having 2 fire stations, one in Rimrock, one in the Palisades. And I understand that it takes money to do that. I don't know how to fix that, but still the fire doesn't care. Cares that it's just gonna go. And if you have a little bitty crappy fire truck out there right now, it can put down a fire, where if you're waiting, the fire just keeps growing. Having something in Rimrock and something in the Palisades, my opinion, is the best choice. Thank you.
Is there any further comments? Please refrain. Any other? For a motion to close. Let's see.
I'd move to close this public hearing.
Second.
Seconded, close the public hearing. This would close the portion for input. for having been moved and seconded. Public hearing portion is now closed. Having just concluded the public hearing on the matter of Boundary Review Board 2025-02, Rimrock Meadows Fire District Incorporation. That's the title. The board will now deliberate and make an oral decision. During the hearing, the board received testimony from representatives of Rimrock Meadows Homeowners Association, as well as you members of the public. The board considered all written material, which
Just the original.
just the original, and any other evidence, including but not limited to the notice of intent and attachments and documents submitted by government agencies, registered voters residing within the area being considered, as well as written correspondence. In the deliberation phase, now the board members, have you reviewed all the materials, the written materials submitted in conjunction with this proposed incorporation?
As humanly possible, yes.
Ed?
No, I don't.
Then myself, Len Anderson, then Todd Gilstad and Ed Daling. Certain requirements specified in the Growth Management Act and the Revised Code of Washington that must be met before we can deliberate or make a decision on an assumption proposal before this body. An affirmative response from each board member must be recorded before we can proceed. Statutory requirements are as follows. RCW 36.93.157 states that decisions of the Boundary Review Board located in a county that is required or chooses to plan under RCW 36.70 alpha.040 must be consistent with RCW's 36.70 alpha.020, 36.70 alpha.110, and 36.70 alpha.210. We'll now address those issues. RCW 36.70 alpha.020 establishes 13 planning goals that cover urban growth, reduced sprawl, transportation, housing, economic development, property rights, permits, natural resource industries, open space and recreation, environment, citizen participation and coordination, public facilities and services, and historic preservation. Board members, these are 13 specific goals identified in the state law. To determine whether this state statute has been met, I will ask each of you to cite those specific goals that you felt were addressed in your review or were a particular note. Please share your observations for the record. Board members may concur or offer their own observations. So,
in my opinion, the crux of it revolves around public facilities and services. Maybe there's some other secondary, maybe it touches on another one of these 13 secondarily, but primarily I think the question is public facilities and services, which
I can. Ed?
Well, I have a real concern about the lack of communication that was addressed here. And how the district would actually be formed and a realistic idea of what the tax base would actually generate. And the boundary discrepancy that was pointed out here that leaves a no man's land, that also concerns me greatly. So I have some real concerns about moving forward with this at this time. I see the need for a fire district, and I see the interest in cooperation And so for me, I think there's some steps in here that didn't really get covered with all the taxpayers involved, and that we do have a opportunity for an extended time period here to collect additional information. And so those are the three things as far as addressing the planning goals that I kind of think at this point in time, I would rather table that and have it try and hit all of those particular concerns. And
Well, I think as I read it, and tell me I'm wrong, but at least on RCW 36.70A.020, does it address any of these goals is kind of all we're asking. And at this point, I think addresses two of those goals, like citizen participation, public facilities. So in that regard, this RCW is just a qualifier for us to engage in that. Once we get to RCW 36. But I concur with your is that
Yeah.
pretty accurate?
Yeah, it's gonna be, when you get to the objectives is where,
So let's carry on. So number 3, RCW 36.70A.110 states the county choosing to plan under RCW 36.70A.040 shall designate an urban growth area within which urban growth shall be encouraged and outside of which growth can occur only if it is not urban in nature. Does the incorporation proposal before us satisfy the urban growth requirement? So the areas urban and outside.
That, to me, that statute's not really applicable for what we're looking at.
it is, but it isn't, because it's for,
This would be more of a zoning.
yeah,
type
but
thing that would be
because
applicable
it's providing services, it falls under the GMA, the growth management, and so it is technically following growth management by providing services, but there's nothing specific to which RCW it's meeting. So for growth management, you have your area and then you plan around that. I don't know how to
Well,
explain.
outside of which growth can occur, this is all nickel and dime stuff, but outside of which growth can occur only if not urban in nature. This doesn't. The proposed fire district is not encouraging urban growth outside of the urban growth boundary. So to me, that statute's not applicable.
Right.
Iffy at best. Like we qualify to go through the process with that, but yeah. Like it's more applicable to things like something that would support building homes, like yes, urban
Water
growth
district, sewer district.
or urban growth.
Yeah.
For RCW 36.70 alpha.210 states that county-wide planning policies must be established. Proposal may be considered by the Boundary Review Board. County-wide planning policies in place. Up is because they're out there in the corner where countywide policies, but don't. Area, at least in with the county fire. Why this is coming up in the first place, because county is not reaching that. Planning policies are in place. Since with those prerequisites, the board will now consider if the annexation proposal meets or satisfies the requirements outlined in RCW 36.93.1 objectives and RCW 36. Nine specific objectives. We must determine whether these objectives have furthered or hindered by this. 9 objectives are: first, preservation of natural neighborhoods and community.
My opinion is that one's, we'll get to the road issue in a minute, but I would say for number 1, it's probably not applicable in my mind. Well, and maybe
it seems like we've
actually might be furthered because you're preserving the existing community of Rimrock Meadows. The people on this side of the room don't like that, but I'm just trying to really discuss it objectively.
But you're building a little bit of a wall between Palisades.
That's true too, Glenn.
So you guys follow this page right here, this stapled stuff for the objectives?
We're on RCW 3693-180. Do you have them delineated further here?
This is, yeah. So that might help go through the 9.
Oh.
So evidence that supports the objective of natural neighborhoods and evidence.
That we just said, me and you. So yeah, it supports the objective is helping Rimrock Meadows develop their rural fire district.
It's trying to preserve
So do you feel it met, not met, or not applicable?
and there's evidence that contradicts and that there is
the contradiction
by farmland. Not incorporating everything that maybe could. Some of the rangeland is not included.
Well, I think there's lack of enough communication between the two communities though too. If you look at being actually drawing the district together in its infancy and then not really having communication between Palisades and I think that's an issue.
No, we got 8 more to go. We can.
Well, we need to come back and address whether each objective is met or not applicable. Go ahead, at least for right now, go through each of the 9 and try and address whether that's supported or contradicted And then we'll go back through. Each of us came up with.
Sure.
Well, I think one thing about the evidence that supports those objectives is that they're both in agreement that there's a need for a fire district.
True. Move on to objective 2.
Well, I was. Go through on our own.
Oh,
fill in
okay,
all
okay,
9,
sorry, okay,
and
gotcha,
then we'll go
gotcha,
back.
okay, gotcha.
Wait, here real quick.
You had a chance to go through each 9.
Have.
One more here. Okay,
As chair, I may declare a specific objective or objectives as not being applicable. Board will be asked to concur with or modify the declaration before moving on. Poll each of you and we'll give our views. Now we'll discuss each objective in numerical order. Back to number 1, preservation of natural neighborhoods and communities. Specific observations that you saw. Evidence that supports that objective was that this plan does try to preserve both groups agree a need for some sort of a fire district or fire would accomplish that, although the evidence that contradicts is some homes problems. The rangeland was not included, so all their property wasn't included. Lack of communication with Palisades property owners. One community to kind of be
Similar to yours. Obviously, there's some contention here, but just on the face of it, I mean, the preservation of natural neighborhoods and communities, I think overall is met. There's lots more points to go through, but I would consider that objective number 1 met. It is contentious, I understand, but that's my decision, or that's my perspective.
Ed, did you?
I guess I have a difficult time trying to understand where I look at them as almost 2 separate communities, not just one, and they've got gobbled into one without the communication that was needed to do that.
I've seen it as preservation as a method of helping. The biggest thing was that lack of communication got everybody. Physically, I think socially it wasn't. I'd have to agree with Todd. I'm going to understand that we disagree. Physical boundaries, including but not limited to water, highways, land, and this.
Well, the only thing that concerns me is if this is creating a no man's land in between an existing district and a proposed district.
To me, that comes up later. This is just physical boundaries. So you have the road issue, which is certainly an issue. It's certainly an issue, but it is an improved road. The thing can be, I'm sure, a bugger in the winter, but it is an improved road. You can get a fire truck up and down it. We got plenty to go. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just physical boundaries, and we got to follow this stuff.
Sorry, but you're going to need to just listen.
So to me,
the time for your comment is over. Sorry.
Yeah, the thing's not going to
feel free to listen to us. You just might not.
If you got to get a fire truck through that thing in the summer, you're going to have some washboard and something else, but it's not going to be icy and nasty in the summer when you're fighting fire. So in my mind, that objective is met.
They tried to include those roads. The only roads there are, I know.
And I get there's a lot of unimproved property there that you can't access. That's a tough one.
I agree.
So I just think it not being an all-weather road is a issue.
Certainly
You know,
could be,
not-
but
Not knowing.
certainly could be, but if you're fighting a brush fire in the summer, it's a gravelled improved road. You can get a fire truck up and down it. If they can make the corners, I assuming they can. I've driven it, but it's been years.
Well, in the winter, someone's house catches on fire.
No, that's a good point.
I mean, most of the time it's impassable.
Oh,
Sometimes
You-
all of our roads are impassable, so there's a line to draw there somewhere.
we're gonna have to assume too that there's. So you're thinking specifically that would apply to truck coming from Rimrock, trying to get to Palisades and not being able.
Either way.
Brian Brett's input was that
If we don't know that, we don't
Yeah,
have
that's
that
not under our
we
information.
don't know that, it's not under our purview.
Right.
I don't know if we can assume that there's not going to be, or
I just don't think we have the information to know that.
right. That's one of the things that unfortunately we don't, because it was obvious they don't have a complete plan. But I would say use of physical boundaries essentially met. Objective 3, the creation of preservation of logical service areas. That one we've got. Pointed out that our department service area. Sounds like right now they're only proposing one fire. Currently only have one. So that's where. That one, the preservation of logic.
Back to the old.
You end up incorporating areas that you might not be able to get
I disagree on objective 3, but we might agree on objective 4. So I would consider objective 3 met just because it's all rural in character and
trying.
it is a logical service area to have a rural fire district in the rural areas. I mean, you can go through the minutia of it, but to me, what we're talking about now maybe applies more to the objective 4.
Okay, I'll note your objection.
Thank you.
For prevention of abnormally irregular. Yeah, I concur that I've got that it does cover the urban areas, which I think and maybe not meet up with Wenatchee. Urban. Comment on that.
I would agree with that.
Discouragement of multiple incorporation of small city. Encouragement of incorporation of cities in excess of 10,000 population. I would I would say that that is definitely not. Dissolution of inactive special purpose district. So it's not.
Great.
Assessment of impractical boundaries. But they did talk about some plans and so on. Topography, which is issues out there, natural boundaries and drain. Definitely have the topography of going in between. Rimrock and not addressed. I wouldn't necessarily expect a fire district to be the one to incorporate that, but at least I think right from the get-go, be considered that that is a possibility. And from the get-go, we should have probably two. That's
This is kind of one of those areas too, where without the all-weather road connecting the two boundaries there that are, it's pretty likely impossible to fulfill the.
I think the intent of this originally was sewer districts, fire districts, or whatever, incorporate, you know, as situations change, urban areas grow, that practical boundaries sometimes crop up because the road systems change, the neighborhoods change, ability to service them. So it may very well just be that this isn't what's going on. It's actually just a lack of service. I would declare that objective 7 is also. Objective 8, incorporation of cities or towns, unincorporated areas, urban in character. I think that was an attempt to be done. Urban areas, all the housings.
I read that a little bit different, but as you stated it, I think I agree with that.
Opposite, protection of agricultural and rural lands which are designated for productive agriculture and resource use by a comprehensive plan. But try to make it look like it's going to apply. Should have probably incorporated ownerships, not just the homes, but their ag and rural lands. I don't know that they get protected any better because of that. But it ends up being that the urban areas are need to be protected. You know.
When you don't include some of the rangeland and some of that, you're kind of just nitpicking for,
Still think if someone had a fire on their property, they.
Yes. Depends how far you want to parse it out. My mind, it's probably not applicable. Make the argument that it was, but my initial take on it's not applicable.
The overall, the mile up view of this is probably, this was written up to make sure that you're taking care of ag and rural land and then adjust. Recreational.
that's kind of a toss-up whether it really applies or not.
Proposal was not met on four. Regular boundaries. Officially, objective 1 was met. Objective 2 was met. Objective 3 was not met. 4 was not met. 5 is not applicable. Objective 7 was not applicable. Objective 8 was met. Objective 9, not. They're also required to discuss the factors outlined in CW 3693.70. That's the state board shall consider the factors affecting such shall include but not be limited to the following: population and territory, population density, land area and land uses, comprehensive plans and zoning as adopted under Chapter 35A.63 or 36. Comprehensive plans and development regulations adopted under Chapter. Applicable service agreements entered into under Chapter 36. Applicable interlocal annexation agreements between county and its cities per capita. Best valuation. Question marks on that. Topography. Boundaries. Drainage basins. Proximity to other populated areas. The existence and preservation of prime agricultural soils and productive agricultural use. Likelihood of significant growth in the area. Incorporated and unincorporated areas during the next location and most desirable future location of community. Municipal services, which this really is the crux of this and need. Effect of ordinances, governmental codes, regulations, resolutions on existing uses, present cost and adequacy of governmental services, roles and area, prospects of governmental services from other sources, probable future needs for such services and controls, probable effect of proposal or alternative on cost and adequacy of services, and controls in the area and adjacent. Effect on the finances, debt structure, and contractual obligations and rights of all affected governmental units. Effect of the proposal or alternative on economic and social interests and on the local governmental structure of the county. Seems like not clear cut cost on this. And the per capita assessed cost of this proposal, it seems like questions. Thoughts are?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Plus, I guess that wouldn't be a natural boundary necessarily, but where the no man land exists in between two districts should be resolved.
I think I have any comment.
From all this, it seemed like a lot of could have gotten ironed out ahead of time. Major issues, the whole reason that those two objectives weren't met was Valley Fire Department. Seems like a minor thing. The communication and proposal that covers all the areas, costs,
I think
I think they need a fire district out there. Right thoughts, and I think it look at that, right? Okay. I guess I'll turn to my clerk here on.
So,
well, we can ask for additional information though.
You almost need
Can't we?
somebody from the county to tell you adequacy of cost.
that's,
Correct. It seems like there was some.
that's gonna be
questions.
unknown because it hasn't gone to the voters. And so the information they have is not gonna be available until that's determined. They can't say, oh, we're gonna charge 25 cents an acre or
So
per
that-
thousand or
that needs to be
whatever.
done on the ballot, say how much.
After it goes through here, it has to be put on the ballot. for a general election or a special election. So when it leaves us, we're done, and then it goes
I guess
to
my,
election.
my question, does it have to meet all 9 of the objectives?
Well, it doesn't have to if there's some that are non-applicable.
Right. But,
So-
but it either has to be,
That's up to you to deny, modify, or approve. So if you feel that it meets it in the majority, that's your guys' decision. If it fails to meet the majority, then that's the way.
Well, I just feel there's an opportunity for more communication to try and resolve this before we go down that road. I mean, let's set a timeline, a definite.
At the last meeting, we were hoping.
Well, but we discovered new information here tonight too, and I'd like to see a timeline set and see if there's an opportunity for people to get together. And if not, then we'll proceed with the information we've got.
I think at this point, we kind of have to proceed one way or the other
Yeah,
with the
we-
information we
I
have,
think we
correct?
have-
Because it's got,
We have to take
the
what
timeline
information
here.
we got and the testimony we got and that to give a yes. We don't have the authority to.
So there is an RCW that sets 120 days for a decision to be made that from the date of jurisdiction being invoked. And so that will be, comes up in January, I can't remember.
But won't do us any good.
Right, so your options are deny, modify, or approve. And what, if they choose to come back, that's on them with a new proposal, or if it fails and never comes back, that's up to them. But our is to make a decision to approve, deny, or modify. Continue on until the 24th, you can.
What
But-
what are our options on modify? We ask them to modify it or the
Propose the modifications.
Propose the modifications.
Opens up a whole nother ball of ball of worm, ball of wax, ball of worms.
even if we propose the modification, we still. Well, you said we wouldn't get the impact, tax impact.
Right,
So-
you don't have the information.
But
But
that-
you can't
that would-
base
that
your
wouldn't be
information on
prepared-
somebody else's
that wouldn't be
financials.
prepared until
Right,
the county.
right, and that's up to the assessors and their timelines on how fast they can turn around. Right now, they're in the process of certifying taxes for 20.
So in my mind, then it's, we moved it to, yeah, we moved to deny or we moved to approve. Well, unclear on if we move to modify what that results in or if it does any good one way or the other. So then in my mind, Len, it's I mean, we've 2 meetings now, we've heard similar public testimony. I mean, we've got the the reading of I think a pretty good representation of the citizens involved. So I mean, I definitely have their temperament. Overall, the objectives are somewhat, not somewhat, I mean, they're trying to be objective, I think, but to me, some of these objectives are somewhat, good Lord, I'm not very good at bureaucrat speak. The objectives aren't, they're fairly subjective. So what's a prevention of an abnormally irregular boundary? Well, I mean, we're in a
That's in
county that's full of irregular.
In a regular area.
Correct. So what's abnormal? That's not defined, and they've defined plenty of other stuff in there, but it gets pretty muddled. I mean, I think I'm inclined to think that most of the objectives are either met or not applicable, but there's certainly, in my mind, one objective that's not met. And according to the board, there's probably 2 or 3 that aren't met, but the other side of it is, how do you meet how do you meet all these objectives? Could Superman meet all the objectives? If you're
Bad analogy.
bad analogy, thank you. I know it was, but I'm feeling a little on the spot at the
I
moment.
mean,
But
they could easily resubmit and include out to the fire district boundary.
is there time to
I
do
could
that
be-
between now and when the timeline runs out? And then that brings in another, there's additional objections if you include, I get the leaving gap. Brian made a really good point. You're leaving, well, if you're gonna do this or not, you're leaving gaps, and they hate gaps, and that's 100% understand that, and 100% makes sense to me, but if you push the boundaries out to include the stuff that leads to gaps, how many people are there gonna be unhappy about that or happy about it? Or how many more irregular boundaries are there in there if you try to take in more gaps in rural Douglas County? I'm just thinking through this out loud. I don't know.
Well, I think the lack of communication kind of started this whole thing headed in
Could have gone smoothly.
in the wrong direction, and that we're incorporating people that didn't initially have any input into the forming of this district and this information. I think that's huge. But I guess it's just too bad that there isn't another way that communication could be improved, or get better information. But I'd have a hard time agreeing to, at this point in time, to approve myself.
One other point of clarification, Sherry. So if we deny, it doesn't ever go on the ballot, right?
Right,
It dies here. If we approve it, then it goes to the ballot,
right,
To-
and
for
they can
for the-
start over,
for the-
or they can not.
right? So if we deny it, ends here unless they decide to resubmit. But if we approve, then it moves on to the ballot for the voters to decide
Or deny.
or deny. You have to decide one way or the other words.
I just have a hard time approving something that could turn out to be poor legislation. And we don't have really enough information to make that decision.
But other information. Good. Little extra work. I don't know how that works. I've never done.
There hasn't been very many modifications in 30 years, so let's just put it that way.
Does that change the
I've been here for
timeline?
5 and I've never seen
No.
one.
It doesn't change the
Well,
timeline because the
modification
decision,
doesn't change the
the
timeline.
decision still has to be made.
Yep.
So we need to have a motion and a second and
I'd move to deny this application at this point in time.
Not
second.
gonna afford a second.
Well, it's either you or me that has to second it. Go vote.
I'll second that. Discussion. Been discussion.
I think we,
Yeah,
The alternative that I see is on requiring adjustment of the boundaries. Adjacent fire districts. That it must incorporate firehouses.
well, at the moment, we're on,
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're on deny.
Okay.
we're on the motion or the vote to deny.
Okay.
Once more for the record.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Point of order. All right. So it has been moved and seconded that we deny corporation proposal. All in favor of denying the incorporation?
aye.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No? Also gonna vote aye in favor of the motion. The incorporation has passed on a 2. Boundary Review Board will meet again on January 7th to adopt our written decision. Thank you all for attending, and on behalf of the Boundary Review Board, we want to extend our sincere thanks to everyone who attended or participated in tonight's public hearing. Heart is torn, but hoping that something out. Yes, and we stand adjourned.